AM weather is made possible by grants from the Federal Aviation Administration, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, Avemco, direct writers of aircraft and watercraft insurance, Phillips 66, providing products and services to pilots at 800 FBOs, ESD Weather Systems, Piper Aircraft Corporation, the leader in personal aviation and flight training throughout the U.S. and around the world. The Gorman-Rupp Company, pumps for construction, agriculture, and industry. And Combs Gates.
Friday morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Weather. I'm Steve Zubrick.
And I'm Joan Von Ahn. Well, Hurricane Hugo slammed into the South Carolina coast just before midnight. Once it made landfall, it rapidly weakened. It's now Tropical Storm Hugo. What you're looking at now is a three-dimensional computer-simulated picture of the tropical storm. It is showing Hugo's motion as it moved onshore last night. Get a good view of the large eye in this hurricane, now tropical storm, as it moved onshore, and you can see that the eye rapidly disappeared quickly as it moved onshore and the storm weakened. Now we'll take a look at a more conventional motion from 8 a.m. Thursday to 4 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. What was Hurricane Hugo slammed into the South Carolina coast just before midnight near Charleston, packing wind gusts of up to 119 miles per hour. Storm surge flooding of 12 to 17 feet above normal was occurring near and to the north of the point of landfall. Hugo moved toward the northwest and winds weakened rapidly down to about 63 miles per hour. Thus, Hugo was downgraded to a tropical storm. The coordinates of Hugo at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time were 35 degrees north, 80.8 degrees west. Now, Hugo will continue to move to the north-northwest at about 25 miles per hour. Weakening is expected to continue as its source of energy is now gone, and heavy rains, threat of flooding, and gusty winds will continue in its path. Let's take a look now at the eastern sequence of pictures. Of course, the major weather feature is Hugo. It's expected to track northwesterly through West Virginia, then turn towards the northeast through Pennsylvania, New York State, Vermont, and into Maine. Other weather features this morning are a trough of low pressure just off the North Atlantic coast and a cold front moving through the central part of the nation. Afternoon highs yesterday were in the 70s and 80s through much of the east, with 90s in southern Florida. Hollywood and Miami broke a record with 93. Key West broke a record with 92. Behind the front in the central part of the nation, afternoon highs were in the 50s and 60s. We saw some scattered thunderstorms across the central plains as well as along the Gulf Coast and West Texas. Let's take a look now at our western sequence of pictures. We found high pressure dominates the weather picture out in the far west. Temperatures mainly in the 70s and 80s west of the Rockies, although some 50s and 60s along the northern California coast and the southern coast of Oregon, although 90s and 100s were found yesterday afternoon through the deserts of the southwest and into southern New Mexico. We do have a tropical storm in the Pacific. It's Tropical Storm Priscilla heading toward southern Baja Peninsula. It's located about 170 miles to the southeast of La Paz. It's moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour. Strongest sustained winds are up to 50 miles per hour, and we do expect further increases in strength during the next 24 hours. Let's take a look at this morning's National Radar Summary, and of course, much of the precipitation is in the southeast in the vicinity of Tropical Storm Hugo. We find heavy rain, showers, and thunderstorms from the Tennessee Valley throughout the southeast, tops to 33,000 feet. Some showers through the Great Lakes with 30,000-foot tops, showers and some thunderstorms through the upper Midwest, 29,000-foot tops there. Showers and some thunderstorms also through the central Gulf states and down around Florida, 32,000-foot tops there, and still some showers through parts of eastern New Mexico and far west Texas with 30,000-foot tops. Steve?
Well, on this Friday morning, of course, Tropical Storm Hugo is the big weather maker on our map. So let's go right to our national map where we find Tropical Storm Hugo is located on the North-South Carolina border near the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, where they've been picking up very heavy rain in the last hour. They have sustained winds of 45 miles per hour with peak gusts to 83 miles per hour. Heavy rain all out through the Carolina region, extending from Savannah, Georgia up into the Carolinas, and there's even some showers of rain associated with Hugo breaking out in portions of central Virginia and even as far north as northern Virginia. Now, other high winds this morning were 53 miles per hour, peak wind gust at Columbia, South Carolina, and 58 miles per hour at Sumter, South Carolina. Temperatures generally along the eastern seaboard have been in the muggy 70s and 60s. And as you go into New England, those conditions have allowed fog to form in several places, especially along the Massachusetts Cape Cod area, where visibility is down to a 1/16 of a mile at Martha's Vineyard, quarter-mile visibility at JFK Airport in New York City. Now, as you move out west, just a little bit of light fog being reported in the Midwest, temperatures generally in the 60s. We have a stationary front extending from the Great Lakes through the central portion of the country down into Texas, just a few light showers being reported in the central portion of the U.S. Temperatures generally in the 50s and the 60s over the central and southern plains. Now, this cold front that's dropping out of Canada is really going to bring an Arctic blast. Temperatures behind this front are only in the 30s in most provinces of Canada. Temperatures out ahead of it in the 50s. Over in the Rockies, generally fair skies, temperatures in the 40s and 30s. Along the coast, temperatures in the 50s with just a few light places reporting fog. Now, the temperature extreme at range at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time range from a high of 84 degrees at Key West, Florida, to a low of 31 degrees at Yellowstone Park, Wyoming. Well, let's take a look at high temperatures for this afternoon. We see warm 70s and 80s cover much of the eastern third of the U.S., 60s and 50s near this northern plains front that's dropping down. Temperatures also warm out west and generally in the 70s and 80s along the Pacific Northwest, extending into the desert Southwest, where you do have temperatures as high as the hundreds. Now, overnight low temperatures, we find chilly readings up in the northern plains where temperatures will bottom out into the 20s and 30s over much of North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Temperatures also in the 30s and 40s, extending from the northern Rockies into the Great Lakes states. 40s and 50s extend from New England through portions of Texas and on into the west. Warmer readings generally found along the southern perimeter of the U.S. from California through Texas, Florida, and up along the eastern seaboard. Joan?
Well, it's time to take a look at our series of weekend forecast maps. We'll start out with the map for Friday evening and with the map for early Monday morning. Of course, the big question is what will happen to Hugo? Well, by this evening, Tropical Storm Hugo will be centered over West Virginia. A good chance for very heavy rains and thunderstorms from southern New York State into South Carolina. Scattered showers and thunderstorms through the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, with rain and showers northward into Quebec and Ontario. Dry weather for the rest of the country. By early tomorrow morning, we find Tropical Storm Hugo will be centered over central New York State. Still a very good chance for heavy rains and thunderstorms from the Maritimes through the Northeast and back into Tennessee. Showers and thunderstorms a good bet also through parts of the central Gulf states and southeast, with scattered showers and thunderstorms through the rest of the east and into the Maritimes. Rain and showers through eastern Quebec, a chance for a mix of rain and snow showers through northwest Ontario, with a chance for some scattered snow and snow showers from eastern Hudson Bay into northwest Quebec. Dry weather for the rest of the country with a chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms in south central Arizona. Now, by early on Sunday morning, we find Hugo will be out of the picture. Rain and showers, though, a good bet along the Atlantic coast ahead of the cold front. Showers and thunderstorms throughout the southeast and into the central Gulf states. Snow and snow showers will be scattered across eastern Quebec. Snow showers also scattered ahead of a warm front through parts of Saskatchewan and into Manitoba. Finally, by early on Monday morning, dry weather from much of the east, scattered showers and thunderstorms with the front across Florida, scattered rain and showers from Maine to the Maritimes. Again, a mix of rain and snow showers scattered through Manitoba and into northwest Ontario. Steve?
Well, pilots and travelers, now it's time for our aviation segment. And today, out in the east, with the remnants of Hugo moving up the eastern seaboard, do expect some travel delays at some of the airports. Already, Philadelphia has implemented a ground delay program. Let's take a look at the current flying map, where we see Hugo is spreading rain and thunder showers over portions of the mid-Atlantic states and up into portions of the lower eastern seaboard. Now, fog is the problem up along the New England states and also into the upper Midwest. Generally fair skies over much of the west with just a few low conditions in fog and low ceilings. No icing to report this morning, but we do have areas of moderate to locally severe turbulence and thunderstorms associated with Tropical Storm Hugo to 45,000 feet. Now, this evening, our flying map again shows the problem with Hugo in the mid-Atlantic states, low conditions in precipitation and thunderstorms, also some low conditions in precipitation in the Great Lakes states, generally fair skies over much of the western two-thirds of the U.S. Now, areas of turbulence, we note two areas, one in the east, moderate to locally severe to 45,000 feet, and an area of thermal turbulence in the desert southwest to 13,000 feet. Now, looking at the flying map for tomorrow morning, generally fair conditions over much of the, again, western two-thirds of the U.S. And then along this frontal system, we have low conditions and low ceilings and some precipitation. And then as you head into New England, you find the remnants of Tropical Storm Hugo spreading a wide swath of precipitation and low ceilings. Looking at areas of turbulence, again, along the eastern seaboard, moderate to locally severe turbulence to 45,000 feet. Now it's time for winds aloft, and Jones has them starting at 2,000 feet above ground level.
This level, we see the counterclockwise circulation around Hugo through the southeast, low pressure over northwest Ontario, and high pressure out in the west, 25-knot winds through the high plains, much of the west, and of course along the South Atlantic coast. Up at 10,000 feet, we find counterclockwise circulation around light and variable winds through the central Gulf states, 25 to 50-knot winds along the entire eastern seaboard, back through the Great Lakes and into the north-central part of the nation, less than 25 knots throughout the west. Up at 18,000 feet now, we find low-pressure circulation over the central Gulf states, strongest winds between 50 and 100 knots from upper Michigan northward into Ontario. Finally, up at 39,000 feet, we find the strongest winds are between 50 and 100 knots, indicated by the areas of deepest shading. We find that counterclockwise flow centered along the central Gulf states with high pressure building off the mid-Atlantic coast. It's time now for Weather Watch, and it's a very busy one. Let's get right back to Steve.
Okay, we begin Weather Watch in the southeast, where now Tropical Storm Hugo will move northward out of South Carolina, spreading heavy rains and high winds over much of the eastern seaboard later today and into Saturday. A combination of tropical storm and high wind warnings extend from Savannah, Georgia northward to Eastport, Maine for today and tonight, including all coastlines, bays, harbors, and sounds, and some inland areas. Flash flood watches extend from the Carolinas northward through the mid-Atlantic states today and into New England for tonight. In the southeast, a tornado watch is in effect until 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for over portions of the Carolinas. Also, a tornado watch is up until noon for central portions of North Carolina and Virginia. The National Severe Storms Forecast Center has issued a slight risk of tornadoes associated with Tropical Storm Hugo for today for much of the mid-Atlantic states. In the Great Lakes, gale warnings are up today for all of the Great Lakes for northwesterly winds 30 to 40 knots and waves building from 5 to 10 feet. In the northern plains, freeze warnings and advisories cover most of the states of Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and Wisconsin for Friday night. Also, lake wind advisories cover all of Minnesota, North and South Dakota today. Finally, along the Pacific coast, dense fog advisories are out for the entire northern and southern California coast. Well, that wraps up Weather Watch and our program for this morning. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again on Monday.
AM weather is made possible by grants from the Federal Aviation Administration, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA Air Safety Foundation, AFEMCO, direct writers of aircraft and watercraft insurance, Phillips 66, providing products and services to pilots at 800 FBOs, ESD Weather Systems, Piper Aircraft Corporation, the leader in personal aviation and flight training throughout the U.S. and around the world. The Gorman-Rupp Company, pumps for construction, agriculture, and industry. And Combs Gates.